see if this works. Come on, buddy. Let's go. Work for me. Are we good? Are we back up? Did it work? I'm over here. I'm banging on the computer. I'm peeing on the CPU. I heard that from a jellyfish expert. Are we good? Hit me up. Are we back? We're back. Yes. Okay. It was the pee that worked. I am so sorry, everybody. Hey, let me continue to drop this YouTube link in here to let people know I had to restart the YouTube. I don't know what the heck happened. I don't know. I don't know if we like power cycled for a millisecond because nothing shut down except for the actual stream itself. I am so sorry, folks. I'm so freaking sorry about this. Wait, are we up? Are we still? YouTube. YouTube, come on now. No, don't mess with me. Are we back? I don't see any YouTube in here. Restream is telling me that it doesn't have a YouTube link. Oh my god. Oh, I'm using the studio link. That's my bad. We are back on YouTube. Okay, I'm not gonna touch anything. Holy f***, I'm so sorry. Not on YouTube. Are we not on YouTube? People are saying we're back. Where are we back? Ah, it started a different, completely different stream. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Let me add the thumbnail to this. This is ridiculous, man. I'm getting out of here so freaking fast, people. I'm so sorry about this. What a pain. We are good. I can hear Mrs. Tomato in the room hollering. We're good. Just want to make sure you guys have the right thumbnail for this. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. Forgive me, everybody. Oh, God. Stream from Turkey, Tomato. It'll be fun, Tomato. Hey, I've missed some of these subs during my rants. 5 Tolish Naya. Aliena. Thank you so much for both of you for the subs. I appreciate you. Smev, thank you for the support. Colt Kimber, thank you as well. Folks, I am so sorry. This is not how our streams normally go. And I'm missing alerts on YouTube. Wait, what happened? Somebody just gifted some memberships on YouTube. Yo, huge thank you. Whoever just did that on YouTube. Thank you as well. PK Payback for gifting out some community subs. Thank you, folks. Sorry for this little interlude. Take a chance. Go to the bathroom. Go get some food. Go get some popcorn. We will be back to the normal programs here shortly. I just want to make sure that we're running and we're good to go on both platforms. And trust me, this is not a Turkey thing. Okay? Turkey has great internet. You can get fiber here. We get great speeds. I can download the full Star Citizen updates in minutes. It's just here. This house was built like a pile of twigs. And we've had to pay the price for that, unfortunately. We were not aware that it was going to be built this lapsadaisically. We were not aware that it was going to be built with this little care. We were not aware that people would not put any work into into this place. But now we know, and we won't be making that mistake again. So thank you all for sticking with me. Thank you for getting back into the stream. I'm going to give a little minute here for people to get back in before we continue. But we will be getting back to it. Just here. Not as in Turkey. To give you an idea, I would guess most people don't know any other cities in Turkey besides Istanbul. We are 4 hours outside of Istanbul. We are in a small city, and then you got to go another 20 minutes past that small city into the country to understand where we are. We literally have cows walking past us on the road during the day. We're rural, so we were hoping that this would work out, but it has not worked out, unfortunately. Great view, terrible everything else. Mrs. Tomato has summed it up. Is there a 5G solution or power walk? Well, you know what? We did sign up for the Starlink program here because it said it was showing up here shortly. But I don't think they said they would be here this year, but I still don't think it's here, to be honest. But even then, you know, our power went out earlier today. And yeah, the view is great. The view is nuts. That's not the only reason we're here. We are mainly here because we wanted to be close to family. But the last 6 months have been a learning opportunity for us. And, you know, as nice as the view is, as much as we want to be close to family, we have a business to run. We have things to do. We want to continue to do these streams. And it's not really possible like that. We don't have UPS, no. We don't get deliveries here. We have to get deliveries sent into the city, and then we have to drive into the city to pick them up. Same with food. Same with all those things. And I don't think that... Yeah, see, it's not even finding my location. They're like, what location? What address? We looked up our address on the Ring camera service, and it was like, there's no address here. You guys can't register. But yeah, a generator would be great, but we haven't had the budget for that, unfortunately. We'll be back in the US by the end of this month. Believe it. The week after CitizenCon, obviously, I want to give you guys the full CitizenCon coverage in the days following the event, but we will be back after CitizenCon in a place with reliable internet. We will also be on the California time zone, so we'll be doing things going later into the day. We'll have more events going later into the day, all that stuff. Not going to CitizenCon this year, though, no. Okay. Let me... does anybody remember what I was saying when you guys cut off? Not permanently. We'll be coming back here a couple of months for the year just to see family. Yeah, we were... Like Mrs. Tomato was saying in chat, we were going to do 6 months here, 6 months there. That's kind of... We were long-term trying to set up to have that happen, but a lot of things have made us realize that 6 months here, or 10 months here, 2 months, sorry, 10 months in California, 2 months here is how we're going to have to do it. Could you guys let me know where you were before we dropped off so I can make sure you're still getting the same service? Don't want to skip anything. Northern California, my friend, out there near Napa. Something Halo. Something about Halo Studios. Okay. Well, after dropping off on our service, we've had a lot of weird power stuff going on today. So we'll just get right back into it. Halo Studios rebranding 343, all that jazz. We'll see if their rebranding really makes a difference or if they can change what actually is the underlying problem at Halo, which I think could be the problem at a lot of studios, which is kind of trying to find what's popular instead of sticking to what makes your game your game. And I think Star Citizen also can take some notes from that. Anyways, what is this? Why is this page even open? So I had a little bit here talking about how The Witcher also crossed over to Unreal Engine. This was a pretty big announcement. And specifically, it was about how The Witcher 4 was switching over to Unreal Engine. And we can listen a little bit here to what they had to say about why they switched over to, as opposed to just, you know, smaller companies or even a company like 343 switching. Listen in.
Our cooperation with Epic has just started. It was the shift towards open world support that brought Unreal Engine 5 to our attention.
So there was one demo that happened last year that was the medieval environment demo, where at one point there's a notice board that looks strangely familiar to things we've done in the past that has even a sign that says Monster Slayer Wanted. And I'm like, are they trying to tell us, you know, come over to Unreal Engine, look how great your games could look on there? Was that whole demo made with that nefarious purpose. I don't know, but it definitely caught my eye.
This opens a new chapter for us where we really want to see how our experience on building open world games gets combined with all engineering power of Epic.
One of the things that is really important to keep in mind when talking about open world games versus, let's say, more linear games is the possibilities of the things that can go wrong, or the scenarios that you have to consider are exponentially higher than linear games. Players can go in whatever direction that they want. They can handle content in any order that they want, theoretically. And to really encapsulate that means that you need a really stable environment where you can be able to make changes with a high level of confidence that it's not going to break in 1,600 other places down the line.
Unreal Engine is like a toolbox which has a lot of features, a lot of solutions already there that allow teams to just try new stuff. The fact that Unreal is used by a lot of teams already in the world, a lot of perspectives are projected into the design of the tools, and that helps the tool to be way more agile. So all in all, it's a really, really cool technology to like prototype and make environments really quickly, really beautiful, and very realistic.
Epic and
I
CD
think
Projekt Red
what he was saying about having an open world game versus a linear game is kind of a key point, especially because Star Citizen itself is not just open world, but MMO. So you have not just the fact that people are going to go in all the different directions, but people are also going to with other people. Like people are going to do a lot of things that you can't plan for when you're building an engine. So on top of the fact that it's not a linear single player engine, not just an open world engine, it's an engine that's supporting an MMO, means that on top of the 1,600, what did he say? I'm sure he was just saying things off the top of his head, but he was saying like 1,600 possibilities in an open world engine. How many millions of possibilities is that with an MMO? And how can you plan for that when you're building an engine out as opposed to using somebody else's engine?
To consider are exponentially higher than linear games. Players can go in whatever direction that they want. They can handle content in any order that they want, theoretically. And to really encapsulate that means that you need a really stable environment where you can be able to make changes with a high level of confidence that it's not going to break in 1,600 other places down the line.
Yeah, that's
Unreal Engine type and make environments really quickly,
it's just
really beautiful. And
oh, come on, IGN with your video player. It really like speaks to how stupidly hard it is to run a game engine yourself. And as Virtual was saying in chat, a lot of developers are realizing just how much work it is to maintain your own engine. Again, with how big video games have gotten. I don't think anybody who was making video games in the 90s would understand just how ridiculously big of a market video games have become in the 20s. There's a really good infographic for this, how video game industry has expanded, that shows how much more money there is involved in video games since its inception. Wait until this loads. Come on. Ugh. Do I really have to go through LinkedIn for this? Is there no better source? Video game industry growth. Come on. There we go. Freaking LinkedIn. Are you kidding me? So like you can see from obviously the 70s is pretty long ago, but even in the 90s, right around this period, look at how much smaller this is compared to what the gaming industry now is. And I know a lot of that is mobile, but even like the PC and the console space have gotten relatively larger since that period. And it's just like, yeah, building your own engine back then, or even at 2010 was one thing. But building it now, there's so much more potential going forward, especially with things like AI developments that you can plug in and get more productivity out of the stuff you're doing. Yeah, CIG has their own engine team. They can control what's added in as time goes on, but that's expensive. And when a lot of people hear the production costs of Star Citizen, they're thinking about the game production costs. But how much of that cost is just going into the people making the engine? Making the documentation for that engine? Rehiring and retraining people to run that engine. It's ridiculous. And they're trying to do that on top of also building 2 games at the meantime. Like, building a game at the same time as an engine sounds like a bad idea. But yeah, that was where was that? Here? Let's finish that to see what else they had to say about it. Because this was a look at kind of The Witcher and CDPR overall switching over to Unreal Engine.
And very realistic.
Epic and CD Projekt Red are the 2 companies that really want to achieve something great. We won't stop just, by developing some features. We won't stop there, yeah? We will continue to work together to achieve something extraordinary in the end.
Okay, so just another example of a big game company. Tekken, Halo, Cyberpunk, whatever it is, switching over to Unreal Engine, which a lot of people use.
Damon here in today's gaming news.
Whoa!
Bethesda.
Whoa! Settle down, dude. And like we've scrolled through, Marvel, Star Wars, Fortnite, all kinds of developers. Fortnite obviously is made by the same company, but all kinds of different developers, people working on Dune Awakening. Tetris is on Unreal Engine. Freaking Yoshi, Final Fantasy, Batman, Star Wars, Borderlands, Kingdom Hearts, Hellblade, Black Myth, Gears of War, of course, on Unreal Engine. It's just easier that way. So, taking all of that and the context of Halo moving over, allowing them to have more time to work on their own game, I now want to draw the emphasis on Star Citizen itself. And this has been a long-term process they've been going through to try and get Star Engine to have its own, its ability to punch at its weight class and be able to hold its own in an industry where it doesn't have any engine that's catering to the needs it has. 64-bit precision, which Unreal now has. Server meshing, which Unreal has a version of. Object container streaming, all the different things that might make it unique, but also the things that they do have to rebuild that other modern engines might have. CryEngine in 2013, which is what they're working off of, doesn't have all of the tools that a game engine like Unreal Engine 5 will have. That doesn't mean that they're building Unreal Engine 5 from scratch or rebuilding the wheel. It just means that they're trying to build a game engine that stays in line and competitive with the rest of the game industry. And they can't do that on their own version because their version is different from CryEngine, it's different from Lumberyard, it's different from Unity or Unreal Engine or Frostbite or Snowdrop or anything else. They have to build then their own versions of all of these same things. And that's both a gift and a curse because, yeah, they can develop this stuff on their own for what's best for their game, but they also can't just pick and choose the little features that they need from the overarching owner of the game engine they're using. Does that make sense? Like, they can't just be like, oh, we're using CryEngine. It looks like CryEngine brought in global illumination. Let's just pull that out of what they've done and put it into our game. They have to build their own version of it because they've had to build the game engine themselves. That's at least the way I understand it. I may be wrong about that, but that's how it's coming off to me. So here is a little talk that Gamers Nexus does. Great channel. Shout out to them. Give them a follow if you want more of the kind of more in-depth discussion about gaming stuff than what a normal publication would do. But they're talking to Sean Tracy, who is one of the original CryEngine developers. Not original, but one of the CryEngine developers from the time when a lot of CryEngine developers went over to CIG and Star Citizen. Just sort of talking about what this engine is and why they're doing it themselves.
The first kind of question to bring up, in our interview with Chris, he mentioned the concept of, I used the word CryEngine, which got the response, well, it's not really CryEngine anymore.
Yeah, right.
So the working title we had then was Star Engine.
So Star Engine's been kind of bounced around. I don't know how.
Kind of crazy, right? That Star Engine was something that they were talking about. This is an interview from 2016. And they only officially unveiled CryEngine last year in full trademark name.
How absolutely official it is or anything like that. But yeah, I mean, it's a pretty different version than what the CryEngine is. We branched quite a while ago. So we haven't taken a new CryEngine version for quite some time. It's about the 3.7, 3.8 area of CryEngine. So this was early last year. It might have even been before that, where we branched off. So we branched off entirely because it was getting really difficult to take the integrations. At some point when you're developing your game on middleware, you're gonna get to the point that pulling integrations is hard because you've customized it so much for your game. So whatever changes you make to underlying engine systems, when there's a fundamental change that comes in from your middleware provider, it's pretty difficult to consume that all the time. And then you start being selective. Okay, well, we'll take this feature, but we won't take this feature. And what you don't know right out of the gate is if there's any interdependency on it, what's going to happen. And then you find that out usually the hard way later on. So we tried to stop doing that. We do cherry pick on occasion from our particular code base that we have up to, and again, I was pretty sure it was 3.7 or 3.8. I just can't remember the exact version number.
Right.
But yeah, we've made some pretty major changes, and it's been ongoing for a while for CIG. Of course, I only came on about 2.5 years ago from Crytek after supporting them with their engine drop versions, and as soon as they were done getting the engine, I'm like, all right, I better get over there. You know. So one of the big fundamental changes, and Chris had mentioned it, was the support for 64-bit positioning, right? Now, what's a lot of people I think maybe misunderstand is that it wasn't an entire conversion for the whole engine. The engine is split up into very independent and not as much as they should be, but isolated modules, right? They do talk to each other, of course, but things like physics, things like render, things like AI, what are the purposes of changing the AI to 64-bit? Well, all the positioning that it will use will be changed to 64-bit, but the AI module itself doesn't really care, So there was a lot of changes to support this large world coordinates. And it's actually pretty crazy. I have it written up on my wall, the actual maximum. It's 18 zeros that we can support in terms of space, which is crazy because especially for...
I guess that's a floating point limit or something at that point.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, and at that point, you just can't have any more within the memory. So it's pretty weird for people that have... come over from Crytek that have worked on just CryEngine normally, because, and Chris had mentioned this, you're working on like a 4 to, maximum 8 kilometers of level. And already at that scale, I felt like that was pretty big. But when it's such a for lack of a better word, it just messes with your mind in the large world coordinates, because you'll be sitting there working on something and then you sort of start to zoom out and you're like, start to zoom out a bit more and you're like, and it just keeps going. It really messes with your sense of scale, though, because it can be pretty confusing. Again, if you're looking at a planet, you're looking at thousands of kilometers of area.
Right.
So it can get very easy to underestimate how large the undertaking of just populating something of that
area
scale.
Too, not just
exactly right. So that can really mess with your mind. But that's one of the bigger changes we made, of course, with the implementation of planets, but more just with the positioning of it, right? So now I think in the first system that we're going to do. And just right now, and this is maybe quantum travel speeds will change or so, but it takes about 45 minutes at our jump or quantum jump speed to cross an entire system. So that's just one system. And if you want to think of the systems,
I think it's really a testament to how much the community has changed, or maybe how much the expectations have changed, that if he said that it would take 45 minutes to move across the Stanton system right now, there would be like 20 Reddit threads, 17 different emails to partner companies of CIG, and probably an entire ISC that had to be dedicated to talking about how that's not on every quantum travel system. That's just on the worst of components. But things have really changed in terms of expectations and how the game works since then, because 45 minutes in quantum travel in Stanton would have people literally setting the office on fire.
As levels, I guess, in themselves, that's kind of how you would think about it. There would be basically no loading for 45 minutes of quantum travel, which is the actual realistic value of 0.2 c, which is the 0.2 times the speed of light. So it's crazy how large that area is.
They definitely sped things up, probably for the better though.
stuff like that. So it is kind of cool.
So the 64-bit conversion, again, I guess the clarity to be made is that it's not the entire engine.
That's
so
right, and it didn't
modules.
need to be the entire engine, right? Yeah, that was the big piece of clarity, I think, and a lot of people have this understanding. They just, I think it's just easier to understand. Oh, yeah, they converted the engine to 64-bit.
Right.
Well, okay, there was stuff within the engine that already was 64-bit. What we really needed was physics and positioning to be,
right?
And that's what got changed. So,
and to put that into perspective for folks, the world space coordinates is one of the big impacts from that. You've got more space you can work with.
That's right.
Is there anything else specifically that you benefit from by making the conversion?
To 64-bit?
Yeah.
Not that I can think of right out of the gate. No, it's more just supporting the actual space itself more than anything. It's not better performance or anything. If anything, it's a bit worse. But I mean, we're talking marginal differences. Like, I mean, yeah, if anything, it's actually a tiny bit slower. But with newer CPUs, actually, we did make a change to how the positioning works, so actually it ends up being faster. But normally, if you were just going to switch over to 64-bit positioning, you would be a little bit slower in your math. So the only benefits we get is just the sheer amount of space that we can support for the players, and they have to have that amount of space for a game that's in space.
Right,
makes sense.
For procedural generation tech for the planets, so procedural generation version 2.0 is kind of the big topic.
Yeah, right.
There's a lot we can talk about here technically. We were talking with Chris, as I said, there's another video on that. Yep. So there's biome.
So Steve Burke. Yeah, Steve Burke. Dude, he looks so much more comfortable now when he does videos. Like, this dude really grew into his position at Gamers Nexus. I don't know when he started. I don't know when Gamers Nexus really started to hit these kind of interviews and get big on YouTube, but this interview, he feels a lot more kind of reserved than I would expect now, seeing him on YouTube and doing his stuff. But dude's amazing. The channel's amazing. Gamers Nexus does great stuff. They're interviewing Sean Tracy, who is one of the Crytek developers who moved over to CIG when Crytek wasn't really paying their folks. And that was probably one of the biggest things that saved CIG in making Star Citizen, is that they picked up a lot of the people who developed the original engine that they forked off of to make Star Engine. And as much crap as people give to Star Citizen for not necessarily releasing a game right yet, which they've been working for a while without releasing a game, they have built a game engine off of Crytek, in no small part due to people like Sean Tracy, who have stuck around and really dug into the actual code of what the engine is and made it possible, which is the whole topic of today. Going back to Halo and what has happened to them, this could be the kind of thing that stopped CIG from having the same kind of story as what's going on with 343 and their rebranding and their move to a different, more universal standard of game engine for development. And I think it's really interesting looking at this whole conversation surrounding how game engines are utilized and built and how they have to be maintained. They did partially work on Lumberyard, yes. In fact, we can see that here. So this is the wiki page, which talks a little bit about Star Engine. Talks about how Star Engine is a heavily refactored version of CryEngine from Crytek, used since the first in-engine video. They have a source here. First in-engine video would be the Squadron 42 video in 2012. It was released at the start of the crowdfunding campaign. More specifically, the last CryEngine update integrated into Star Citizen's code was patch 3.8, CryEngine patch 3.8. This heavily modified version has been internally named Star Engine since September 2016 at the latest, before moving to Amazon Lumberyard. So Star Engine, which we all saw last year, whether you saw it at CitizenCon or you saw it at another watch through, or you saw Asmongold reacting to it. I don't even think he got to the end of the video. Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah, probably is. You can tell it's fake because the Earth isn't flat. Yeah, by now, like, you know this shit's fake. This is amazing. I'm gonna be honest, guys. I could watch this for an hour.
Oh, just wait, dude. You'll spend dozens of hours watching it at a standstill because you can't get out of your space station, but it's okay. We've all been through that. Anyways, plenty of places that you could have seen the Star Engine presentation. It took them a solid 11 years to get from the Crytek engine that they started developing on to commercially unveiling the Star Engine, even though they were calling it that since 2016. It's a long freaking time. So on 2016, December 23rd, CIG announced with the release of Star Engine 2.6 that it's moving to Amazon Lumberyard game engine, which is also based on CryEngine. This is a very confusing part of the development because they were moving to Lumberyard, but they were still developing their own specific version of CryEngine. They were doing this in order to utilize the integrated Amazon Web Services and cloud computing features to support next-generation online gaming. So when somebody tells you that this is a game based on the Lumberyard engine, the only reason it's based on that is because they wanted to get AWS services, AWS, whatever. I just said Amazon Web Services, and the cloud computing features of Lumberyard to work with them. It's not because they wanted Amazon to do what Epic does for a lot of people. They didn't want Amazon to be the company that developed the engine for them. They just wanted some of the benefits of what Amazon offered in their version. It is not known which version of Lumberyard is currently integrated into Star Engine and how CIG will handle future iterations, but that is the way it is. Star Engine aims, among others, to be seamless without loading screens or invisible walls, despite being massively multiplayer. So there's a lot of things that they've added to it. 64-bit precision, object container streaming, which is a big part, the mega map feature, the zone system feature, local physics grids, the room system, which we're starting to now get from engineering and life support. You can kind of see even in recent ISC episodes, they've shown how the life support system will fill a room with oxygen. In fact, I think I've got some footage here that supports that. So here is footage from, I think 2018, maybe 2017. This is footage of them testing this room system out in the engine. This is their development process from 7 years ago now. Just trying to figure out how they can get gases to move from one room into another based on human interaction. You can see all the numbers processing, the mass, all that kind of stuff going on in behind the scenes there. Got another one here that shows a little bit of a better overview of it. Again, this is from 2017. Hello, Luna Maria. Welcome to the stream today. So you can see atmosphere volumes opening, closing of doors, changing the way that it's balanced, all that jazz. To now, we can go into the ISCs that they've shown us just very recently. And we can see the way that they have now developed a system that both in-game objects and the players themselves can interact with the atmosphere being vented via this room system. So this is all the kind of stuff that gets built into an engine that makes it work a little bit better for the specific needs that they have. Subsumption AI is another one. The Apollo tool is what handles that. Procedural generated planets. I think we're going to get a big presentation on that at CitizenCon. They're now starting to use machine learning to help build those things out faster so that systems might be able to come faster. We'll see if that happens. Universe Simulator, I believe, is referring to what they call now StarSim. Persistence, which we've seen with persistent entity streaming and the entity graph. The item port system is what allows them to switch items over in ships. Grabby hands, which is no longer happening, but is something that they worked on for a little bit. And just other things. Over the course of time, they've developed this engine out to be something different from Crytek. You're sure Crytek was not happy losing a lot of their core engine devs to CIG? Should have paid them. I mean, very indicative to the whole talk, Crytek was also struggling to pay the people who were making their engine, because making an engine seems to be kind of hard. Will we be going over Planet Tech V5? Curious, but don't know much about it. Yeah. So the stream, the CitizenCon presentation in a couple of weeks will probably have a panel based on Planet Tech V5, and I would encourage you to watch that panel when it's posted on YouTube, or you can join us on the stream. I'll be doing a live stream just like I am right now. You can subscribe to the channel. You can go onto the channel. If you go to my YouTube channel and you go to the live tab here, you will actually see that I have the stream scheduled for there. You can just hit this button, notify me, and it'll let you know when we're going live. We're going to do a stream just like this. I will be calling into people who are out there on the show floor during the day. I will have talks in between the panels. We'll do before and after of the CitizenCon event itself. And we'll be talking about Planet Tech V5, the Nix system, the economy, Star Sim, whatever it is they decide to talk about. We still don't know. I think we'll get a schedule probably in the next couple of days, probably this Wednesday. We'll see a schedule come out about what they're going to talk about. But it's still a bit of a mystery. Toes. So that kind of wraps up my talk overall about game engine maintenance, about the difficulties that a lot of game studios are facing when it comes to trying to both simultaneously run a game engine and a game. I'm glad that like game engines have become more of a thing when it comes to developing or sorry, not developing, talking about space games in general, video games. I didn't even really understand game engines a decade ago, but over the last 10 years, they've really started to share more about what makes a game engine, especially from CIG. I think I've learned a lot of the difficulties and problems that you can run into in developing your own game engine. And I think it's impressive when a company can do that, but it's also, there's like a sliding scale on whether or not you should have your own game engine, if you should rely on somebody else to develop that back end for you that you can then use to make the best game that you can for the vision that you have. And just like the costs that are involved with that. BioWare is a really, it's a really good example of this. I don't actually know. Hold on. Dragon Age, Veilguard, game engine. I don't know which game engine they're using for that game. Is it still Frostbite? It is. So it would be really interesting to know how much they've changed the Frostbite engine for something like that. I think it is it's a really, this would actually be a great example for today's talk, because a lot of people associate the Frostbite engine with the reason that both Anthem and Mass Effect Andromeda fell short. So they took an engine that was built primarily for FPS games, Bad Company and Battlefield, and moved it over to RPGs, which maybe required a lot of work to get into the place where they could work for RPGs. But now you have Dragon Age Veilguard, which is coming out like 7 years later after those projects. And maybe they've just had enough time now to develop the Frostbite engine into something that could support an RPG. And maybe it works. We'll have to see. It comes out in a couple of weeks. So we'll see what it does. But yeah, overall, just it seems like the game engine conversation is a very important one to, I think, have a little more insight into now. And that's why I wanted to have this talk about Halo, about Star Citizen, about all the things. I hope you learned something from this one. Thanks for joining. And with that, we're going to move on to CitizenCon. We're going to talk about past CitizenCons and CIG's own expectation settings when it comes to CitizenCon. I have a video that I released about this last year that we'll start with, just to kind of get the conversation rolling, but we're going to jump into a couple of different references in past CitizenCons and look at what they had to say about what the future of Star Citizen was, both in that year and in like future years, because it can get kind of embarrassing, let me tell you. This is going to be a good time. Let me get caught up on chat real quick though. Luna Maria, talk about your birthday. Happy birthday. Hope you're having a good time. It is late over there. But now you've been sticking with the stream, so appreciate you. A Star Citizen made today, it'd probably be Unreal Engine 5. At the time, you don't think there was a good choice for what they wanted. I would be interested in knowing that. That'd be a really fun question to ask them, because how much does it cost to use it? It's free to use for students, educators, and hobbyists, and most non-game companies making less than 1 million in annual revenue. Okay, but how much does it cost to use for anybody else? For other companies, if you earn over 1 million USD in annual gross revenue, you will need to buy Unreal subscription seats. Unreal subscription costs $1,850 per user per year. Let's assume that CIG has 300 people working on their engine, right? Even if they weren't building the engine themselves, I would half that to say that there would still be 100 people or so, maybe 150 people that were specifically working on shifting the Unreal Engine into whatever CIG could use to make their stuff. So that would still be, if they're at 1,300 people right now, 1,050 people using Unreal Engine themselves, assuming that they're not like Netflix password sharing. And how much was the fee? $1,850. And that is a sliding fee, I'm sure. So they would still be spending $2.1 million just to license out Unreal Engine if they were using Unreal Engine for their development. That's at least a couple hundred Javelin sales per year, right? It's a lot. As of a few days ago, they changed it to 3.5% of like what? Your revenue? It's royalties they take after making $1 million a year, 5% by default, but most companies get discounts on that 5%. So it would be more than this? Wow. Plus 5%. That's nothing? I mean, that's still something, dude. That's still more than 2% of what they make every year. They've probably spent more on making their own engine there, but their own engine is paying back, right? That's like the difference between leasing a car and buying it. You're paying it as something that has that value that's going to last forever versus something that at any point Unreal Engine or Epic can control the terms of. It's yeah, I don't know. They could use it for the ease of use, but I really do think that building their own engine long term probably benefits them more. Birthday was in August. No, I know. I just saw happy birthday, so I was piling on. Wes Shub, hey, thank you for the sub, mate. Appreciate you, Ruben. It's good to see you in the chat, dude. Most of my encounters with you, Ruben, are on Twitter, but I appreciate you. See, I think you're a great example, Ruben, of a content creator that doesn't necessarily make videos, at least that I know of. Maybe you make videos, and I am mistaken. If you do, I'm sorry. Send me one of them. People think that content creators can only stream, make videos, or like do other kinds of stuff. But I think you are a content creator in the sense that you help people to stay informed. You let people know what's going on. You give people something to interact with when it comes to Star Citizen. And I appreciate that. That is the sign of a good, healthy community. And it's good stuff that you do. So shout out to Ruben. If you're not following him on Twitter, give him a follow. Check him out. People saying that's not bad probably don't even have an emergency fund. I could say that. Kind of how a lot of TV shows in the early aughts sucked until new forms of storytelling evolved. Yeah. TV got real good in the last 15 years. Type of engine that would nail those sand caves, but then would require a planet to be divided into 20 kilometer instances. Oh, I bet it would look beautiful. Unreal Engine 5 would do great sand caves. You want to do some YouTube comment when there is a new GPU next year? You'll give it a go. I'll keep an eye out for it. 30% to Apple or Steam, or Google probably too. Yo, Parker. Hey, good to see you. Thank you for the support on YouTube. Long time. It's been a long time, brother. Good to see you around. You would not want Epic to be involved in SC development. That's fair, Huntress. I get that. And thank you, by the way, for the sub on YouTube. 49 months. I will say this. The Red Huntress has been one of the names that has supported us since the beginning. Since we were just starting out on YouTube. Helped us get past a lot of those growing pains. Helped us really expand. Thank you so much for being not just here on Twitch supporting, but also on Patreon, on YouTube, just in general, looking out for the creativity. Appreciate you. Game engines are ultimately tools. In the end, anything is possible in any engine. It's just about the tools it has and how much effort it'd be to adapt to your needs. Yeah, how you swing the hammer makes a big difference. All right, let's look at CitizenCon. So, CitizenCon is coming up here, and I think it is worth always going back to past CitizenCons. Every time we get to this time of the year, it's October. CitizenCon's coming up. Last CitizenCon is fresh in the memory. Thinking about the things they talked about that are in our hands, that are not in our hands. Some people will tell you they have no problem. They've delivered everything. Other people will tell you don't believe anything. They don't deliver a single thing from CitizenCon. But in general, every CitizenCon has been a little bit different. They've delivered different things from different places. The Sandworm from 2016. The AI flying ships from 2019. Pyro from the last 4 different shows. But last year in particular was a big one because they set a lot of expectations, and I think things were a little bit different with that return to the physical CitizenCon. And while they've delivered about 50% of what they talked about that last year, I think that they are doing a lot better than what they used to do. So today we're going to take some kind of fleeting glances at some past CitizenCons to see the kind of stuff they were saying and how well they did at delivering that stuff. In order to kind of set expectations, and get ready for what we're going to see at this new show coming up here soon. So we'll start at 2013. I'm going to use my own video because I conveniently made a nice summary of it in the past, and we'll kind of pick and choose some places where we'll jump out for some more detail. I hate listening to my old videos, but it must be done. Truth on that about it just being any tool and how it's developed beyond the baseline. They are not even on Lumberyard branch anymore. It's so customized they were able to trademark it as Star Engine. It is one beast now. I hope that they have like a Star Citizen Live about that, where they talk to the developers like Sean Tracy and some of the other people who came from CryEngine to talk about how much different it actually is. Steam takes 40%. Yikes. The keynote for CitizenCon will be streamed live to the public. Absolutely. You can check on their own channel, either on YouTube or Twitch, or you can join us right here on the channel on the same day at the same time, very much live. All right. Let's take a look at what they were doing in 2013. The very first CitizenCon event was held in Austin, Texas. It was
pretty unprofessional and pretty haphazard, to be honest.
Yikes.
Definitely had that small indie dev feeling of not knowing how to best fill the hour. It was almost like a long around the verse filled with anything and everyone. Concept art, the ships, the team, the birthday occasion, offices, everything was pretty casually shared throughout the event time. There were many familiar faces there too, such as Benoit and Turbulent, who were building the web infrastructure for the project at the time. Not server meshing just yet. The CitizenCon was where Chris made official the CitizenCon tradition, every year in October marking the anniversary of the Kickstarter launch of Star Citizen. Besides those introductions, everything was mainly about the immediate future. Long-term news just wasn't really in the cards yet. The event gives us the best view of where Star Citizen came from, as it hasn't always been this big project. Some of these updates came from studios and people no longer involved in the project, and some highlights were parts of the game that are no longer included either. Overall, 2013 felt like it had the least direction.
Okay. I can agree with that. This guy might be onto something.
In 2014, we saw more celebrations of funding and more introductions of team members. The show was focused on ensuring the studios are moving forward with some level of productivity, but overall there was still not much shape to the messaging outside of that. Around the Verse was celebrated as just starting that year, later to be replaced by Inside Star Citizen, and 10 for the Chairman was a thing, the perfect engine for feature creep. But for the most part, the current goal seemed to be about fan interaction and just keeping the community engaged. In all honesty, it was hard to see a game being built just by watching those video productions throughout the year. CitizenCon was what was meant to dive more into that stuff at the time. One key thing to remember from this year was the introduction of the Crytek engineers into the fold. CIG had struck gold managing to pick up CryEngine developers when Crytek was struggling financially at the time. This helped expand the game and make the progress of development more robust. A large focus was also on showing what felt like proofs of concept, though they were being presented as game.
Yo, this is Archon Station. You guys remember what this looked? I wouldn't be surprised if we see this at CitizenCon this year. Let me show you what this looked like though in 2018. Like, look at how big a difference they made in this location. So here it is, right? In 2014, when they presented it for CitizenCon. Here it is in 2018. Same space station. You can see how much the art style of this game changed over time. And I think it has changed since then, too. Not quite the same view, but you do get the sense that it, like, there's a very clear difference. That look at the scale. You can't even fit it in one shot here, you know? It's just got a lot more, it looks much more developed. Oh, you might be fitting it in one shot there. I was wrong.
Game assets. We saw several locations like the Shubin facility we know is still in Squadron 42.
Could have just freaking waited. Sorry.
Overall, 2014 was still very rough in production, disjointed, but enthusiastic. Still a very indie feel. There were plenty of reasons given for the long development time and how things were going, but we'll hear more about that over the next 8 years. Ultimately, the 2-hour show ended with 20 minutes of what was described as a prototype of the persistent universe.
Yeah, okay, let's go back to that real quick, 'cause that's actually pretty funny. So, this CitizenCon was the first time we saw what they had in mind for the game. Here's a little look at what they presented that CitizenCon as being a planetary approach in Star Citizen. For reference, this style that we're about to see is a little bit closer to something like what you would see in Star Wars Outlaws this year. You just kind of get close to the planet, and then you spawn a loading screen that loads you down into the city, but makes it look cinematic in the process. Here's a look at it.
Thank you for contacting landing control. Entry, descent, and landing.
Crazy to think this is the same game.
Assuming navigational control. Enter target screen. Adjusting descent vector in preparation for final approach. Stand by. Flyover Commercial District C. Area 18. Encore.
Yeah, it kind of gives that Starfield vibe too.
Landing complete. Thank you for using Pentatech EDL Assist. Enjoy your stay on ArcCorp.
Honestly, I get some like Knights of the Old Republic vibes from this as well. It has a classic feel, and I think a lot of people still wanted that back then, but that was sort of what they were going for at the time. Now, during these older shows, I'm not going to show you too much of the details of what they promised because it wasn't that crazy. I think being so disconnected from these times, it still feels very, or rather not as novel now, because it's pretty easy to do in gaming now, but back then it was still pretty impressive. Once we get to like 2016, we'll start to look more into the details.
It was a glitchy on the rails landing into the Area 18 location module. This predated any planets in the game whatsoever and was basically just eye candy. "2015 was slightly larger and slightly more put together. It started out with the same sort of summary of the past before moving on to the real show. We saw that the Frankfurt office had started up with the Crytek developers, the Arc Star map was unveiled for the website, hardware partnerships were announced that
Remember the SciTech HOTAS? It's probably very good that that didn't end up happening. I think SciTech got bought by LG that year.
Fortunately, I don't think made it to market, and there were also of course new ships unveiled and new sales announced. Major news saw Chris introduce the Persistent Universe as Star Citizen 2.0, with missions, ship interiors, and more. This was the first actual Star Citizen experience, and was around the time players started to get a tangible idea of what Star Citizen aimed to offer in the Persistent Universe. We saw classics like Port Olisar and Korea, all areas that are still in-game in much more interactive ways now. Well, besides Port Olisar. At the end of the demo, Chris actually said he didn't want to give dates because he was always off.
And he did that every year from then on.
Don't want to give you dates because everyone gives me shit for giving you dates.
That was 7 years ago, and many predicted dates ago. This is likely part of why we don't actually hear from him as much anymore. But this was the first CitizenCon that felt like they had a true agenda.
They hosted this one inside of an actual hangar. Like there was just straight up a plane sitting over the audience as they listened in.
Prepared. Rather than just reviewing and talking about what was being done, we started to see the proper in-game activity and tangible releases that players had been dreaming about for the previous 3 years. We just didn't realize how much more there was to go. Keep in mind, at this point, most of the backers at the time that were active had voted on the game being expanded, so from there on, things began to change a lot. And of course, towards the end, we did get a Squadron 42 update with the infamous Answer the Call 2016 trailer. They will literally never live that down.
So I think this was like the first time they made a big sort of statement at a CitizenCon that didn't pan out and started a very difficult few years of CitizenCon where they would do the same kinds of things. They had a lot of trip ups around this period of CitizenCon, and we'll get to that as we get further on in. But 2015 was like around the time when they started to introduce Planet Tech, and that's when the game really expanded. 2015, 2016 was when like the game just completely shifted in what it was trying to offer. And as was said here, the vibe of the game, the approaches that you would take to the planet that didn't include procedural Planet Tech, that would split everything up into its own zone, that wouldn't require server meshing, that basically went out the door this year. And a lot of people wanted it, but we're still dealing with the ramifications from that decision.
No matter how successful this all is, that was just a bad move. We got a ton of detail about how the trailer was made, how the motion capture was going with actors, and some features from the big name actors that had been locked down for Squadron 42, which in hindsight isn't really what I would want to be seeing about a game that is planned to release the next year. While we did get the famous Morrow tour, that was mainly just an asset showcase. At this point, CitizenCon was really starting to take on the feel of a mark.
Holy crap.
Mainly just an asset showcase. At this point,
Can we just... That was Squadron 42, dude. Can we just go and look at Squadron 42 real quick to get an idea of how much different the conversations look now compared to what that was?
How much of a shitstorm we're flying into?
More like a hell.
Like... Oh my god. Hold on, I'm sure we can find a scene from the actual hangar. So this is the hangar, right? This is the same hangar.
Did get the famous Morrow tour. That was mainly just an asset showcase. At this point,
this is like the same location.
And experience as possible.
Oh boy. This looks like some Far Cry 2 stuff, dude. This doesn't even look like it would have been impressive in 2017. I'm glad that they got some time to rework this stuff. Wait, I think actually we have this specific character in this video. Granted, this is a cutscene, so it probably wouldn't be exactly the same graphics. I don't know if they're doing the same graphics in their cutscenes as their... Funny enough, here's the before, right? This is the before that they showed at CitizenCon last year compared to this. Same person. And then they show the after of what we have now.
How did you handle it after Vega?
Compared to what she looks like in this. Is it worth another 7 years? I don't know, but Jesus.
CitizenCon was really starting to take on the feel of a marketing event. Something that was true before, but not quite as pronounced as 2015 and beyond.
Outer Worlds? I think Outer Worlds did okay for itself.
2016 was rough.
No, that wasn't a pre-texturing shot. That was a marketing shot. That was what they showed off at CitizenCon.
Of course, with the format the same as the previous year, we got testimonials, staff updates, and what's going on in the offices. But then we started seeing some new things. They introduced Spectrum, and they talked about org functionality.
Right. So yeah, this was the year we started to hear about org tools and stuff like that.
Even though we still have to run org stuff off-site. Spectrum has not done the best since this first introduction, in my opinion. We had a weirdly placed new ship sail before moving on to Squadron.
Okay, let's go back to this. These are some good references. Let me find the entire presentation. The Polaris sail was one of the worst, in my opinion, the way that they presented it. This is it. They just like randomly brought it up in the middle of the show.
John is not going on stage again.
I'm gonna make you sit through all the awkward silences. Like, nobody knew it was coming at this point, right? They're just kind of presenting a new trailer to people. Cantor, thank you for the 9 months. The Twitch, the YouTube, baby. Appreciate you, dude. Thanks for the support. I have played Outer Wilds. Great game.
1 year ago, our lives were shattered.
Like, okay. All right.
But we have not forgotten.
Cool. Squadron 42. Okay, let's go. Let's go. What's going to happen? Bringing out Gary Oldman. Argo, nice. Love the Argo. Cool. Oh, is there like a battle or something? Like a war? Wow.
United in the face of the Vandal threat.
Okay, great exposition.
We have dedicated ourselves to creating the universe we have always wanted.
Yeah.
A safe and secure UEE for all.
Yeah, the UEE. Okay, let's go.
Thanks to your continued support in the sale of war bonds.
What?
The UEE is proud to announce the Militia Mobilization Initiative.
Oh, okay.
Authorizing the sale of certain military-grade ships to ensure that civilian militias are properly equipped to defend the Empire in times of need.
It sounds
we will
good.
ensure
Okay.
a brighter future for our children.
Yeah.
At the forefront of that effort is RSI's newest ship.
And then it's like, okay. What am I supposed to be thinking at this point?
The Polaris, combining devastating firepower and searing speed. The Polaris-class corvette is effective against a wide variety of aggressors and scenarios. From delivering humanitarian aid...
Like, wait, hell, I thought this was a Squadron 42 trailer. What's going on?
...to tactical operations. The Polaris's ability will make it an essential part of any fleet for years to come. But the Polaris is only the tip of the spear for this grand initiative. A full line of other ships are now available for a limited time. And to support faster mobilization and operational effectiveness, fleet formations are being offered in discounted, pre-designed ship teams.
Oh, discounts!
So stand in solidarity with the brave men and women who put their lives on the line and join them in protecting the dream that is the UEE.
God.
Answer the call today.
No, I will not answer the call. The call's been ringing for, this was freaking 8 years ago. Like, this was after the answer the call of the previous year ended up not being true for Squadron 42. I can't believe that they did it like this, man. I can't. And like, that's why it's like, yeah, they make mistakes right now. They do some not great stuff right now in terms of marketing, but holy crap, if they pulled something like this now. Oh, man. This was at a time when everybody was expecting some kind of a Squadron 42 trailer. In fact, let me go back and see what it was they were actually saying was coming up from here.
I named, like being able to add your custom emojis, your custom upvote buttons, that'll be in that second release. And then after that, we're moving to a 6 to 8 week cycle for all of the remaining functions. So launcher, in-game overlay, voice support, and mobile. And so
yeah, see, like this is a trailer that was dropped off the back of like a back end of Spectrum.
As you can see, you can already imagine how we can bring down the organization system management in it or add more features to it. And so this is going to become a really important tool that you'll have, since you'll have the installer and you'll have the launcher, you'll have Spectrum installed. And so that's it. That's what I want to show you guys.
Okay, how did they roll into this? No, dude, no, they didn't even preempt it. Oh my God. They didn't even say anything leading into this. They just dropped the trailer. Brother. Oh, dude, that's so painful. See, I wasn't as tuned in at this point. That's just... Oh, Jesus. Everybody's like confused clapping.
All right. So anyway, you probably already know because it's been on Reddit. We sort of released our RSI Polaris Corvette, and I think yesterday was the best day we ever had in Star Citizen. And
well, that hasn't changed. God, I mean, the ship is finally coming out, right? Next month. There we go. We got it. We answered the call. UEE militia. Toter Kenny, dude, thank you for the sub. I missed you there. 43 months though. You and Red Huntress both in that 40+ club. Don't worry, it doesn't mean you're old. It just means that you made this possible. Thank you. Appreciate you. I'm not a sad tomato. I am. Like, I'm glad to be in a position where I can point this stuff out. I'm ashamed to think that if I was around at that time, I would have brushed this off. They were hurting at this time, though. They were hurting at this time. Let's jump forward to what else they were saying. I want everybody to remember what they said at CitizenCon last year. This is the huge thing in this whole video for me. Last year, people got pumped because of what they showed us in game. Not concept art, not talk, not a presentation slide. What they showed us working in the engine as coming this year. And while some of it hasn't made it, the fact that it was working in the engine was a big deal because let me show you what they tried to pull in CitizenCon 2016.
There you go. And so I'm just going to walk you through, before we get to the fun stuff, kind of our roadmap. Obviously, we talked about 3.0 back in Gamescom, which is sort of the first kind of, you would consider, yeah, that's, I wouldn't say it's what Star Citizen, the final game, is going to be, but a lot of games, if they had those features, they would be very happy. Which is going to have trading, cargo, piracy, smuggling, mercenary, bounty hunter, which we talked about. We're going to try to get the Stanton system in there fleshed out. It's going to be using the Planet V2 technology, which I am going to show you very shortly after I've gone through these slides, which I think you guys are going to like.
I also think it's worth noting how much better they've gotten at this. CitizenCon last year was there was music, there was good presentation, there were good graphics, all that kind of stuff. This is a very bare bones presentation. But the idea behind this, if he doesn't mention it, just want to make clear, is that each of these patches he's about to show us would be one quarter in that year. This would be 2017, Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. Here's what they wanted to present.
And in 3.0 we'll have we'll have things like the Rover and the Dragonfly, who you saw a little bit of at Gamescom, Caterpillar, the Aquila, which you may or may not see here in a bit. Okay, so, and I want to give you a bit of roadmap after 3.0, so you know what we're doing.
This is pure vodka. I need it because this fucked up.
I guess there's a lot of miners here, or refiners.
Don't say that, Chris. That's bad juju.
So 3.1, and just also, by the way, in case you haven't noticed it, I know last year we said, well, we're going to do a release. We're going to try to do a release every month. After going through this year, we've sort of realized that that's a very hard cadence to do, because by the time you get new content in and you start testing it and get feedback, it's almost impossible to get a significant amount of content to test and do the feedback. So I would say that our cadence on releases, which is what you've seen in the last few releases, is probably going to be something.
Yo, they had the escort missions for a little bit. We had those, the beacons you could take. Those were solid missions when they ran well.
Like 2 to 3 months between releases. So just to give expectations, because I don't want to go through 3.1, 3.2, 3.3, and 3.4, and everyone goes, okay, we're going to get that in 4 months. Because again, we'll get shot by everyone on the development side.
Chris,
but
if you
anyway,
only
so
knew.
3.1 is going to have mining, we're going to have refining and processing, we're going to have quantum interdiction, which means you'll be able to wait and pull people out of quantum travel. whether it's AI or you're doing it yourself. Refueling, escort. We're going to add additional locations to Stanton. And you know, we're going to have the new Drake ship.
The whole sea.
We already have the red and blue, but in the new...
Dude, it gets worse. It gets worse.
Sea for trading, the Prospector for mining, and the Origin 85X, which was this kind of cool cruiser that was with the 890 jump. And if you already have an 890 jump, of course, you will get that already. The next one up would be 3.2 with
3.2, 2017, half 2.
Repair. So
freaking salvage, dude. You guys know how many times salvage was delayed? You can just look it up. You can literally go on Google and be like Star Citizen salvage delays, and somebody made a picture that shows all the different times salvage showed up on the roadmap and didn't happen. Now, I think persistent entity streaming was important for salvage to happen, but like, look at this: 3.2, 3.3, 3.5, 3.8, 3.10, 4.0. Oh, nope. Psych, 315, 316, and then eventually we got in 318. Like, here it is, salvage coming in freaking Q3 of... Oh, sorry.
We'll be in 3.0, and we'll be sort of fleshing all these out. Again, you know, adding more locations in Stanton and fleshing it out further. Finishing out the RSI ships in the new way, Terrapin, and then the...
You know what we did get throughout this time, though, was the ships, Reclaimer, Terrapin, Vanguards. We got those.
I know it's one of Nate's favorite ships, so if you know Nathan Disley likes the ship, it's going to be awesome. 3.3.
Farming. And
Who knew farming was so popular?
And the Banu Merchantman. The Banu flippity f***ing Merchantman in 2017.
3.3 is farming, sort of the rescue side. Yeah. I know you can hit Tony up about all this here because
call Tony, folks. Don't come to me.
While we're doing a Stanton, and you know, the Anvil Carrack, which I think everyone's that's the 890 jump, right? And the Merchantman. There you go. And by the way, so once the Squadron 42, the Foundry 42 team working on the Squadron 42 ships, they're going up. They're actually all rolling. So the way we're going to do it is that our biggest vehicle team is in Foundry 42, and right now most of them are working on the Squadron 42 ships because there's a lot of them. There's a lot of Vandal ships, a lot of UE big ships like the Bengal, I mean the Idris, the Javelin. So they're all going to roll off onto sort of the big new ships, which are, you know, Carrack jump.
This is 1 year after Answer the Call. This was like during the time that the call should have been picked up.
Sort of the more, you know,
this was 2016. This is October 10th, 2016. This was prime time for a release of Squadron in 2016, and it just didn't happen.
Anyway, and so that's what we're going to have with 3.3.
Oh, but 4.0.
Finally, 4.0.
New star systems. 4.0. When I say that Star Citizen 4.0 has taken 8 years, it's because of this slide. This is when they told us we were going to get 4.0. This is why people are so excited that 4.0 is actually a possibility. This is why, even though the meme has been 4.0 Road to Pyro for the last 4 years, the fact that it's actually in testing and not a freaking slide on a presentation is such a big deal. Screw the Orion, screw the Crucible. I can't believe they even put those on there. They're not going to make those till the gameplay is available. Thank God they're not. Thank God they've learned that. But the fact that they put this on here as the bait and switch of what was going to happen over the next year, because by this point they knew they needed server meshing to make this happen. It wasn't a freaking mystery that they were trying to do Planet Tech, and they were trying to have it all with no loading screens. Server meshing was pretty much a done deal at this point that they needed to have it in. As far as I'm concerned, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't imagine how they thought they would have all these planets with the ability to land on them and not have to have some sort of server meshing tech. So the fact that they put this on here is pretty damning to the fact that they could not stick with the schedule that Chris forced somebody to put together to have in this presentation. And as despicable as it is that this is something that was presented back then, and I'm not excusing them for this. I'm not. I think this is something I try to bring this up every single year because people need to understand how bad they were at this point in their history. I think that they have become a lot better at setting expectations and at helping people understand what's actually happening. To be honest though, I couldn't tell you that they wouldn't dip into this kind of territory if they got truly into a bad situation when it comes to funding again. And that's why I don't know if people, when they say, oh, don't give them money, cut off all the money and the game will come out. I don't know if that's the case, dude. Honestly, if the money started to die horrifically bad, I don't know if the game would come out. They might just go back into stuff like this. They might start doing things like this again, which inevitably would kill the game. But I don't think cutting off money is going to make the game suddenly come out. I think them hurting for money and realizing that things are not going well is what leads to things like this. And this was just bad. 2016 was a bad year.
So this is that'll be the first time we'll go beyond stand.
Look at, I'm even surprising Space Game, bro.
I'm not going to say how many star systems yet. Depends how much we'll be able to build with our content pipeline, which we'll show you a little bit up and coming here. But we're very focused on, if you've seen some of the ATV, how to author star systems at the quality level that we like, with a sense of lore and art and character and history, but be able to do planets, because sometimes in FPS games people spend forever years just making a small.
Thank you very much.
Level, and obviously for us to build the system, the universe that we need to be a bit faster than that. But we will have 4.0 is when you will be able to jump to other star systems. Exploration.
Well, that's still true.
Will be sort of highlight there for obvious reasons. Science and research, and the RSI Orion and the Crucible will be two of the big ships that we will be doing there.
Yeah.
So that's the roadmap.
Okay, so that was God, that is rough. We've gotten through the worst of it. There's still some bad parts, but now the next big thing. Same presentation. This is, I think, a really key part of Star Citizen's lore. Everybody knows the sandworm as a very key sign that they promised things and didn't deliver. What I think a lot of people don't know is that the demo that the sandworm came in was not a gameplay demo. This was not an advertisement for a patch. It wasn't setting expectations for what was coming next. This was just a showcase for what their procedural planet tech could do. And this is both on CIG for presenting it as a demo of Star Citizen's future, and also on people, media, whoever, for not saying this is a procedural planet generation demo and showcase, not an idea of what the future of the game looks like. Because if you look throughout this entire talk, all they're talking about is the tools, the technology, what it takes to make procedural planet tech. Not necessarily the idea of what Star Citizen 4.0 is supposed to be, Star Citizen 3.1, 3.3, whatever, anything. All of it is just about the idea that they have developed this new technology and they want to show it off in the best light. So then you step into this demo that they've prepared, and Lear 3 isn't even a planet that's anywhere near what we are expecting in the game. This is it's on the other side of human space from where the game is developing from. Lear 3 wouldn't even come for another, probably more than a decade of development from where we are right now. That being said, the planet tech that they're showing off here is stuff that they will probably be doing by the time we reach 1.0. But it's again about the communication, the presentation, how it was made, and all the commentary surrounding it. And that's how we got to the point where you could find this old bad boy. And that's an expectation now. Didn't have to be like that.
Maybe that's not such a good idea.
But Chris wanted to have it in the Planet Tech demo that showed off the Planet technology of the game, and now it lives in infamy forever.
That's the first time it's ever done that. But you get to see the pull-out twice now. How did it go to the console? Did you get a key or
No, they've definitely said there's actually a good FAQ where they have acknowledged the fact that they might not be able to do a single shard, but they just want to get to that point. Let me see if I can pull that up for you real quick. I got the receipts for you, bruh. Is it true the end goal of one single shard for all players? We will start with many small shards per region and slowly reduce the number of shards. The first major goal will be to reduce this to only needing one single shard per region. To be there, our plan is to gradually increase player count per shard and constantly improve the backend and client tech to support more and more players. It is our ambition, however, giving a definitive answer is not possible at this point. They have acknowledged that it is not necessarily a guarantee. I think they need to come out and say for sure that's not going to happen, though. I'll drop this link for you guys because this is a very important link. This is man, I need to save this in my own bookmarks. This is an important Q&A that gets forgotten, I think, often. It was a while ago, 2019, I believe it came out, 2021. Has a whole bunch of questions and answers about server meshing and their plans for it. You can read through this. I think it's a great read. Might be a little bit outdated, but it gives you an idea. And that was 2016. On to 2017.
CitizenCon 2017 switched up the format of the convention for good, splitting the regular few hours across several different panels featuring various team members on the main stage. Unfortunately, there were other things being hosted at the same time, so there were sometimes empty presentations. The production of this event was much better, with proper coverage, better scheduling, and information availability, and more entertainment value. Though there is something to be said about putting too much into making this convention an entertainment event in this period of development, as opposed to a large progress update. That being said, the updated format of having more dev teams come out to speak led us to getting much better updates from different parts of the game, allowing us to learn more about what's going on and what's coming up.
I think so. In 2017, it was still very marketing focused. Like CitizenCon has gone through these phases of being an introduction to what the project is from 2013 to like 2015, to a marketing event from 2016 to 2017. And I think from 2018 onward, much better at giving just an update on where they're headed. And you can even see this here in the 2017 progress. An explanation of shards, best way I can simply put it, is that whatever you think of as a server right now, replace that word with shard. Shards are the instance of the game. That instance is going to be made up of multiple servers. Servers are what define how many players can be there. So right now we're on one server. You can have a shard that contains 5 servers. If those servers are the same size as what they are now, that means 500 players, where we only have 100 right now. And that's why server meshing is a big deal, because it allows them to split that one server into multiple to make a shard, which is multiple servers. So then you can split the load that hits that one server that we play on right now over multiple servers, giving you, less overhead, less load. Skippy, thank you so much for the membership on YouTube, dude. Skippy does a lot for our community, our org, big part of the team. And yes, these are the 4.0 EPTU patch notes, of course, my friend, of course.
See a lot of the big names at the company that are just now pushing out the major features they were talking about back then. On that note, many of the initiatives that began to be discussed around that time are just now starting to make it into the game.
Very true. Planet Tech, Vulkan, background, server meshing, object container streaming, a lot of those things started to be introduced at 2017. This is the first time it felt like they were really starting to get their shit together.
So it seems the team was finally starting to get an idea of how to technologically make this all happen.
It's a kind of way of putting it.
They still underestimated the time it would take. And then there was the 2017 mess up. introducing the ability to claim land in-game, but not specifying that that land couldn't actually be claimed until the game went live.
So yeah, every year there's something in CitizenCon, and in 2017 it was that they introduced the Pioneer, and then they introduced the idea that you could buy land claims with the Pioneer. Bad mistake on their part, because this made people think that they were selling virtual land in the game, which obviously has negative connotations, when in reality they were just selling basically the beacon you could put in a place when the game officially launched that would give you land. So everybody still had the equal opportunity to get that land. They were just kind of selling things to sell things to make money. This was still around that time when, man, they really just weren't making good money compared to the scale that they were trying to expand into. Oh boy. How am I bleeping the cuss words? I got a little button here. It comes in a lot of use.
Someday far in the future.
Yeah, selling the dream.
They coupled this discussion with base building, which was likely premature as well, and essentially created another reason for CitizenCon to rub people the wrong way. In the end, we still ended up getting a nice demo to see what they had planned for the game in the next year or two. Planets, moons, and spaceships. No fancy missions, no sandworm encounters, an actual demo in the actual kind of playable game. It wasn't exactly what made it to the game, as again, this was a mock-up for the show.
Yeah, that was this is an interesting comparison. So 2015, here they were showing the module of ArcCorp, as opposed to in 2017 at CitizenCon, they were showing us the actual ArcCorp, which we wouldn't get for I think another year and a half or so, but it was something they were actually developing.
It wasn't exactly what made it to the game, as again, this was a mock-up for the show, but it was at least representative of the next year or two, unlike the show in 2016. 2017 was a good year for the event. It still acted very much as a special event and marketing opportunity because the game itself still didn't really exist in any major way, but it really solidified the idea of CitizenCon as a multi-team progress update with a more formal tone.
2018 though. This is where things start to look a little bit more up for them.
CitizenCon 2018 was huge. But right off the bat, they tried to make it too big. CIG attempted to make the event so high production value that they needed to charge backers an additional $20 just to watch the extra content in the live stream online.
Yeah, so in 2018, they split, this was the first time, and I think the only time actually, they split the show into two different stages. And they charged money for people to watch the second stage content online. Oh my God, yeah. That was rage worthy. People raged, dude. It got so bad, they went back on it within like a week of saying that. They so quickly backed off on that. That was such a bad idea, man. And it was like, guys, if it needs to be so expensive that you need to start charging people to view it, then it's too expensive. This is not a released game. And this is, once again, just pointing to how tone deaf they were in making these events happen back at that time. They've made so many improvements on that kind of stuff now. I think that's part of why last year's show was so successful, because there wasn't a huge controversy around it. The biggest controversy around last year's show was that they said that maybe they could get all the stuff in the next year. And yeah, they didn't. But that's like a normal thing to fall short on. You're not trying to sell us on something that doesn't even exist. That you're not trying to sell people access to view the event. Like oh God, they were just doing some wild stuff back then, you know? Anyways, though, let's see what this guy has to say about it.
This was bad. The entire industry latched onto this, as the game was not reputationally in a good state as it was. This caused backlash in the community as well, with many calling for the event to be kept smaller to avoid splitting the fan base. Many others lashed out in defense against this. It was a pretty bad look, and ultimately the company backed down from the plans and gave everybody full live access. Since then, every stage and panel at the event has been void of any charge. To be clear though, no matter what the extra content would be in the live stream, it was always free on YouTube after the event. So this year we started with the gameplay demo showing the gameplay we might expect in the coming year or two.
See, this was reasonable because what you see in the demo that they showed at this CitizenCon actually came to the game within a year. This was the first time that it really started to be like that.
Much of it ended up in the game, from the ships to the planet to the interactions to the mission, mostly. This was an upgrade to the previous shows in showing us actual working tech that would improve our experience and define the game going forward, as opposed to just showing us kind of a tech demo of what they're working on. The mission givers, the underground bunkers, the vehicles, the landing zones, they all came to the game in short order. We again got plenty of updates from different teams like Flight Experience, VFX, Planet Tech, and plenty
for anybody who is unhappy with the flight model, this guy here on the right, David Coulson, he was the one who was working on physics before, who left. And once he left, there was nobody at CIG really who was suited to work on this kind of stuff. You could see here he's presenting drag and lift on the flight model. That's why Yogi stepped up to kind of take the helm on that. And unfortunately, you know, the previous talk we had about game engines and designing that and all that stuff and how expensive it is, they couldn't pay anybody high enough to bring in somebody who was ready for physics when it comes to flight to develop all this. The guy who was there before John Coulson was, Dave Coulson? Something like that, was John Pritchett. And he also eventually had to step away because he was doing other stuff. He couldn't be on site. And it just goes to show how hard it is to keep people who can relegate the direction of a game engine's physics system when it comes to flight in a situation in a market like this. Dave got poached. Oh, I didn't know he got poached. By who? Where did he end up going? That's too bad, because he seemed to have some ideas about this stuff and they did follow through on them, but it's too bad that they had to start dipping into existing talent in other areas just to get the flight model to keep working. Richard Tyrer. Oh, we'll see him at CitizenCon for sure. He got a big old promotion. He's basically in charge of Star Citizen's development at this point. So we'll see where he goes. But yeah, this is a big part of it. Reminds you of the VTOL mode. Ooh, boy. They're going back to that in a more natural position, thank God.
Updates from different teams like Flight Experience, VFX, Planet Tech, and more, and ultimately saw a full day of progress reports on where things were and where they were headed. And then at the end of the show, we got a road to release from Chris, claiming what he feels would be the core parts of Star Citizen that needed to be delivered.
So this is what set our deadline for where we are now. This is what, like, I know we just talked about the whole server meshing in 2016 thing, but this is when they really, or no, sorry. In 2016, they mentioned 4.0 and the new systems. This was the time when they finally marketed for the first time that they needed server meshing to do what they wanted to do. So this is when the clock started in 2018 at CitizenCon, and here we are 6 years later. They're finally actually testing it.
Not including all those things from 2016. We received confirmation that server meshing was their main target for technological
where the heck are their work systems, right?
Achievement before the game would allow us to start seeing 1,000 players on a single planet or see everything persist across all of your play sessions. We're only now seeing
1,000 players on a single planet. We'll see.
This realized 4 years later, but it's key to see that this trajectory was set and followed from that time. Besides the organization stuff, they just keep kicking that can. And what about Squadron 42? Well, they claim to have wrapped.
Thank you for highlighting that, man.
Kicking that can.
This is the one that just has not shown up throughout all these years.
And what about Squadron 42? Well, they claim to have wrapped up most of the things on that list we saw earlier, so things are sounding good, although the game itself was nowhere to be seen. Almost all technical hurdles were figured out, and the public roadmap leading all the way up to game release was going to be published soon. TM. Have a listen.
We're closing it down. All the remaining features were and content. And the last major technical hurdle that we were worried about on Squadron was object container streaming, which, as you know, we're almost ready to close out here on 3.3.
Bro.
So we don't have any major technical hurdles left on Squadron. So for us, you know, it's a bit easier to get Squadron closed out than obviously Star Citizen that needs the server meshing and all the rest of stuff. So that's going. We're going to publish the public roadmap for you guys in December, all the way.
Get the out of here. I'm so glad I put this in this video. He just said that it wouldn't be as hard as server meshing it, and server meshing is about to happen before Squadron does.
It's a bit easier to get Squadron closed out than obviously Star Citizen that needs the server meshing and all the rest of stuff.
Yeah, Squadron will come before Star Citizen, but like, this is 2018. He's like, yeah, the last things we need for Squadron are, they're almost done. I remember when they still said that beta for Squadron was going to happen in 2020. Dude, this is the kind of stuff, like, I am so passionate about Star Citizen. I'm so excited for this kind of game. But this is the kind of stuff that really, really freaking sours my mood about how it's gone and how it's going. I'm glad that they took some outside investment, to be honest, so they have somebody else with actual money to swing around to answer to. Because clearly they weren't respecting the backers in answering their demands and meeting their expectations with all of this. That he was 2 years after saying, answered the call, Squadron 42, 2 years after saying 4.0 is coming in 2017, then saying, oh yeah, we're getting the last little bits figured out with Squadron 42. 2 years after this, they would be saying Squadron 42 is going to beta. Now here we are 4 years later, and Squadron is feature complete. Let's see what happens at this CitizenCon. Now, I do think they're finally closer. Thank God we can see some real footage based on that. But, like, it's pretty clear why people haven't trusted this stuff up until now. And we'll see what kind of stuff they can present at this CitizenCon, whether it's a demo, whether it's the first chapter, whatever it might be, that helps to build some confidence in this. But they really need to climb that mountain and get some respect back and some reliability back after this kind of messaging at previous CitizenCons.
So that's going. We're going to publish the public roadmap for you guys in December, all the way to completion of the project.
Yeah, it didn't happen.
4 years later, and we actually haven't seen any gameplay since then. The game was nowhere near release.
Just for the record, this was published last summer, so we did see gameplay after that.
Ready, even at that point, and the beta milestone would be missed 2 years later. And looking at these various CitizenCons, you can see how people have lost trust in their predictions of Squadron 42. The trailer they did release for it that year was pretty cool, but it's the last official trailer we would ever see to date.
2019, last CitizenCon we got.
2019 was a very hype CitizenCon. It was also the last physical CitizenCon we've seen thus far. They continued with the panel format, going a step further in the quality of their demos and the information they were sharing. This event served as our introduction to the overall economic model, which still isn't really in the game.
You guys think we'll see Star Sim at CitizenCon this year? We only got gameplay because CIG saw this video. Oh man, wouldn't that be something? Oh, those streamers. They change it over. They just change the development of the game. You don't think we'll see Star Sim? Dude, I really hope we do. I freaking hope we do. We really need to hear more about how the back end of this game is going to work.
Ship Talk, which has been an annual tradition in CitizenCon ever since, where ship people talk about ship stuff. And Theaters of War.
Ooh.
The 2019 CitizenCon mistake centers around the premature introduction of Theaters of War, a game mode meant to test out what combat scenarios could play.
So, literally every CitizenCon, at least in that last 4 years, there was some kind of a presentation mistake that set expectations way too high.
Out in the persistent universe without risking persistent universe playtime. It also comes off as a Trojan horse for the Star Citizen experience in the FPS world, but has been held back by tech limitations and so far hasn't amounted to much. It was a good idea, carried by hype to an unnecessary announcement.
Dude, this is the kind of video, like I haven't watched this video since I published it, but I look at this kind of thing and I'm like, what? People are like calling me a white knight. Bro, I'm putting all of their mistakes on blast in this video. I'm trying to draw attention to just how bad CitizenCons were. People need to watch this stuff, you know? This is a great presentation of how out of whack CitizenCons were in the past.
To continue encouraging backers. And it seems like every year, something had to take the responsibility of that role. We of course also had updates on Planet Tech, which was approaching its V4 launch, the initial version they wanted to continue carrying the game forward with, the audio engine that would be creating the sound effects around the game.
Planet Tech's always on time. That's one thing that's always on time.
Toned down from the last couple of years as an event, and seemed to focus more on the info again, while allowing in-person guests to enjoy themselves. What was new this year was the gameplay demo being split into 2 parts. It carried the recent tradition of showing more realistic gameplay in the next couple of years, but still used some tricks like AI planetary navigation.
It is to show it's not that bad now. It still is bad now? I don't think it's like this now. I think the worst thing that they do now is Chris Roberts will say, we want to try and get this stuff in the next year to you, which isn't great, but like Chris, like he doesn't even say we promise it's going to be there. He doesn't even put it on a panel. He literally just says, it is our goal to try and get this into by the end of next year. And they fall short of that. But they get the stuff. They get the stuff ready. You don't need that comparison. It's not bad. Okay.
New missions and atmospheric AI ship flight to sell an experience that players still can't find to this day. This was also our first visual introduction to jump gates and the pyro system, and the first time we saw pyro mentioned in CitizenCon. This was a better representation of the gameplay that the company was shooting for in the coming years, but still too focused on showing off the idea of the game and not what would actually be available to players.
Yeah, I think 2019, the big thing that they showed that was not great was the AI flying the ships. That was probably the biggest mistake in that. The AI flying the ships and the local mission at the outpost.
In 2020, CIG skipped CitizenCon after the pandemic changed their game plans for the year. This was convenient as the company...
So if I skipped that one line Malakina, you'd be good? Just to confirm.
Was also definitely behind on delivering pyro and would be better off putting time towards getting back on track. Despite this, we did get a few updates.
They didn't.
A lore-based Star Citizen Live, a hype video about the community, and a Squadron 42 update that was actually supposed to come out earlier near June. It was the first in a series of updates to the much anticipated and delayed game, as the communication surrounding the game had reached an all-time low and the desire to learn more an all-time high. Unfortunately, the update amounted to a deep dive into a single location of the game with no gameplay. They never released another update to Squadron 42 after that, and that was the last footage we've seen of the game as of now.
This is like one of 2 different places where they were like, yeah, we're going to start this series that gives you updates, and then they just never continued the series after the first episode.
There was no CitizenCon, but they still managed to roll out a mistake. It's a bummer. "2021 was CIG's take on a digital show. It was high production quality, straight to the point, and concise. It offered monumentally informative updates on some of the most important tech in the game, stuff that we had started hearing about earlier in that 2018 show. Persistence, the Gen 12 renderer, server meshing, and Planet Tech. We got a great understanding of how the underlying tech that would drive the game was meant to work, and we were told straight up from the devs themselves how work was going with these assets, the milestones they were...
That was the first time we finally gotten server meshing explained to us, which was nice. No news on Squadron 42 since last October is not true. We still get monthly reports on it. But they haven't done any video updates on it. I'll give you that.
Going forward with, and how they were feeling about their process. We've seen updates on the ships that were discussed, the engine tech that was explained, the new outposts, planets, and systems that were introduced, and much of the virtual CitizenCon was able to strip out the extras that made the show an event and pivot the focus almost completely towards an update on the game itself. And it may have been just coincidence, but this was the right time to start doing that. With the game finally in a playable state and shipping meaningful updates, CitizenCon was losing its importance as a huge hype generator or marketing tool. There were some segments that still fell back on the hype generating discussions of earlier years.
Still can't get through that panel.
That definitely offered less tangible insight, but overall the show was mainly focused on explaining what was already known, rather than introducing something new and exciting. In the same vein, the keynote demo was more reserved to a style of gameplay the team was aiming for in the next major update. The gameplay was realistic, with features like the inventory system, looting,
hey, what's up, Havoc?
Navigating AI all making it into the game since then. There are still some missing aspects like the improved weather system, more interactive shopkeeper, and the entirety of Pyro. This wasn't the perfect representation of the next year of gameplay, which I believe CitizenCon should represent, but it gave a very good idea of the near future when new outposts made it into the game.
Eventually.
If you'd like to know more about
someday. You're just saying that's the White Knight part instead of saying these are these problems and leaving it at that. We need to add, but it's not as bad as it used to be. I feel like it's always worth saying, hey, this has gone well, but they still have these problems, or saying, hey, this is how they were bad, but they've still done this to improve. I guess I'm a balanced kind of person. But yeah, some people will see that as being giving excuses, I guess. That might be the case. I don't know. I always like to try and give the full picture, even if it's overly negative or overly positive. I like to highlight if like somebody's done something really freaking bad, at least there are some redeeming parts of it as they've come to the current state of things. That being said, the fact that they've never acknowledged those things isn't great. I would really appreciate if they came out and they were like, hey, we were not good back then. That was not great, because CitizenCon up until basically 2022 was just not good.
This wasn't the perfect representation of the next year of gameplay, which I believe CitizenCon should represent, but it gave a very good idea of the near future when new outposts made it into the game. If you'd like to know more about when that may be, I have 2 videos available to you.
Nope.
Otherwise, I'd...
Nope. Don't trust this. They're not even close to correct anymore. God.
Say 2021 was a good step forward for this event. CitizenCon needs to act as a major annual update for all players that can't keep up with the usual development.
I also think that in my naivety of making this video, I probably figured, hey, if CIG ever sees this, maybe I can tell them what was good that they've started doing, and they can continue to do that as they... Like, I never for a second, at this point at least, I don't know, 2023, I was off the rocker. I wouldn't expect for a second that they would look at my video and be like, let's change CitizenCon based on what Space Tomato said. But if there's enough feedback maybe that says, hey, you guys did good in this way and not in this way with CitizenCon, maybe they would start to angle their CitizenCons more to kind of do that kind of thing, to show what is supposed to be rather than what they want to be. So having some positivity acknowledgement there, I think, can help. But there's certainly a danger of whitewashing some bad moments, if you will.
It should offer us the ability to hear more in-depth explanations and plans from the devs that are too busy to chime in otherwise. And it should set expectations for the next year and the end goal of the game. It's still not perfect, but it is well on its way towards that role. Overall, it may be weird for an unreleased game to have an annual convention, but the project depends on CIG being able to adequately communicate all the details.
Okay, we don't have to watch the rest of this. CitizenCon overall has been rough for them. It's like the majority of these presentations have just set expectations way too high. I'm not going to go into all these different things from CitizenCon 2019, but even if we just start out from here, you can kind of see that, like,
dynamic.
They were so focused. What is this? Wait, I don't remember this.
So we've showed it, but Planet Tech 3.5 was what.
See, I think this is like once they actually started to deliver stuff, they got a little bit more comfortable pointing out the things they can do and not the things they want to do, which was good.
Sorry, I'm behind on the. Can I not get this up here? Otherwise, I'm gonna have to look up here. I forget about it.
Yeah, I saw that they teased jump points for CitizenCon. I'm not convinced that's anything that has to do with Nix, but
because you don't have to buy with
marketing
cash
stuff.
any of the ships. You can rent or purchase them with the money you're earning in the game. And we've also been shifting to quality of life staggered development, which is, you saw a little bit of that in Alpha 3.7. We're more serious about that. So we've moved the teams to 6-month cycles. We're still delivering patches every 3 months, but the teams themselves get 6 months to work on their features or their content that will go into whatever patch they're sort of designated for. I think it gives them more time to.
We know for a fact that that's true, right? Because we've been seeing the same stuff that was supposed to be in 4.0 since like summer.
Do good work and iterate and give you a better experience. And we're slowly working on aspects of the gameplay.
Yeah, I saw the overtime
say the feel of flight,
from Tom Henderson.
We're doing things like, Sean was showing the sort of theaters of war where that's a good sort of contained mode that will allow us to sort of fine-tune what's really cool about Star Citizen, which is sort of the mixed arms, the ability to be on the ground or in a vehicle or up in space. And so we are increasing our focus to make sure that the game experience now is, 3.7 I think is probably our most stable release today. But the game
they were doing, this is 2019. They were doing patches every 3 months at this time.
So
they stopped that with 3.18, I believe.
This is what's coming up next. So in 3.8, we are going to have the very first iteration of server-side OCS. So
that didn't do as much as we had all hoped.
What we're running about.
But it helped them.
It's there, which we've so they're going to be rented in the game.
Yo, this was actually really big. This was when the funding of this game took off. It happened in 2020. You can look at Star Citizen's development. And this is why I always say it's not the ships that bring them in a lot of money. It's the state of the game. Now, I think COVID definitely helped them. But if you look at the way that the game changed in 2020 when they got actual persistence and people felt like they could earn stuff over time in this game, you can see just how much the funding exploded. Again, I think COVID had something to do with it, but look at what happened in 2020. It just immediately started to go up and up and up, and year over year it kept going up from there. But like that was a big explosion of funding, and it didn't like fall back down after COVID sort of stopped affecting everybody. It just kept going. And I think a big part of that was the platform persistence that allowed this to play like an actual game. Before this, you didn't even have a ship. Like if you earned something in a patch, it didn't matter what you did, 3 months later, it'd be gone. You can say that was COVID. I think COVID was part of it. I don't think COVID was all of it. If COVID was part of it, then we would have seen it in April too. And it's not that big a difference between April this year and April the previous year. May was obviously a big month, and November is a big month. Those are their biggest months all the time. But I believe honestly that the persistence that made this game an actual thing you could invest time into and not just lose all your progress every 2 months or 3 months made a big deal to a lot of people in how much money they wanted to spend or the amount of people who were even interested in playing.
Are going to, so they're going to get saved off to the platform in the same way that we record all your shop cash purchases. And so when a new release comes, we can re-entitle it back to the account in the same way we do for everything that you do. And the plan with that is to not have to wipe between iterative releases on a major release and potentially even from one release to the next. And we do reserve the right if there's like a major issue or a major rebalance, so we have to redo the data.
I think the first time they wiped after that was like a year and a half later, which was just super healthy for the game. But at this point now, people just don't want to see a wipe at all anymore, which I get. So they kept going from there, talking about the things they were doing and
then
getting the server meshing.
More content, obviously, and then open up a bit. We'll see what happens. All right. So, now we've done that, we're going to head into our demo. But if
And then, yeah, they got into this demo. And it basically ended the previous part of the demo ended with them walking into a ship that an NPC was flying. Which is like, we still don't have that in game. That was the thing from 2019 that we still don't have.
All right. So we're on the Microtech shuttle to the lab.
So this was the last gameplay demo that I think really sold a situation that pyro at the end. Yeah, this was when they introduced the jump points too, which was it's just all weird. Now, CitizenCon 2021 kind of did this. They showed us pyro again. And they showed us some aspects of the demo, like the outposts, which is something that we still don't have.
But you have good rep with them, and so they allow you to kind of enter into certain areas that the other players wouldn't be able to.
So it wasn't just 2019, but I feel like 2021 at least felt a little bit more in depth, or within grasp, at least the stuff outside of just the major demo that they showed at the end here. But yeah, this was, I hope, a kind of a look at different CitizenCons to give you an idea of how ridiculous they were. And I'll say it, they're not as bad now, thank God. And I mainly highlight that because I'm grateful that they're not. Jesus, if the CitizenCons now were as bad as 2016, 2017, I think this game truly would be bleeding just so much support. Not good. Pyro was not for 5 years, particularly because we didn't even have CitizenCon in 2020. I believe in 2020 they gave us an update on Squadron, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, they skipped Pyro in 2020. So technically it was 4 years. What did they do in 2022? I think that was in 2022 they gave us ships, engineering, Loreville, master modes, underground facilities, investigation missions, and then one panel on pyro stuff. So in 2022, like the focus wasn't pyro, but there were some panels about it, yeah. I think 2020 was the only one where they fully skipped it. We'll see what happens this year. But I hope this was a decent overview at what CitizenCon used to look like. They have their problems that persist. They have their problems that they got rid of. They've gotten better at some things, worse at others. I just hope, above all else, that this year, when they bring up CitizenCon, they're talking to us about stuff that is due in the following year. And some of that stuff might slip, but the majority of it should definitely come in the coming year. Do I have predictions for this year's CitizenCon? I'm going to have a video on that probably by the end of this week, whenever we get the schedule. I'm thinking we'll see Nyx, maybe a little bit of Pyro. We'll probably see more reputation stuff. We'll definitely have a ships panel. I think in Star Sim, base building, crafting. I don't know if we'll see anything about bounty hunting. I don't know. I'm pretty reserved to my expectations for this year. I'm not trying to go all out with crazy things anymore. I'm mostly relying on things they've talked about already this year. So we see what happens. Yeah, Theaters of War. Definitely a lot of Squadron. I could see that whole second day being mostly Squadron stuff. You have something you think I'll get a huge laugh of? It's a clip from an old interview with Travis Day from 2014 where he acknowledges they're terrible about giving dates. Dude, Chris does that every year. Every single year, Chris is like, I'm not going to give dates because you guys will hate me. And then he gives a date. It's just what he does. It's just tradition. Starsim is their economic simulation in the background. Artax, thank you for the sub. Maverick, thank you for the bit. Folks, because this stream started so late, it is late. It's like 11 p.m. here and I still have to have dinner. So I'm going to pass y'all on. I'm sure Mrs. Tomato would like to eat as well. Thank you all so much for being here. I hope you enjoyed this stream. I hope you had a good time. I'm going to send you all over to Leaf. Good guy. Great Leaf guy. He's helping us out with our gameplay stuff. He does a lot of Rocket League reporting, but he's also doing some Star Citizen content. I'm going to send you over there. Give him a sub. Give him a like. Drop those emotes in the chat. Give him the toes. Let him know where you came from. I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you got something out of it. I'm just trying to inform and entertain and give y'all something fun to do every couple of days. I will see you on Wednesday. We'll probably be doing some PTU gameplay and stuff, checking out what they're doing there. Hopefully the Zeus is in by then and I can give you a little walkthrough. But yeah, y'all are great people. I love you. Much love. Seriously. It's good times, folks. I might be wrong about some stuff. I might be right about some stuff. But I just appreciate still being here with you all to be wrong and right and bouncing off of you back and forth. I hope you appreciate it. I certainly do. And I hope you have a wonderful week. Go give somebody you love a hug. Eat something you love. Do something you love. Treat yourselves well, people. You're a good person. And you deserve the best. I'll see you on Wednesday. Have a wonderful week. And ciao.